Hey y'all, Fred here. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to do some cut testing with the Spyderco Tenacious. So the whole cut test series I'm doing is really for my own purposes. We've got a whole bunch of replica knives that we have purchased and we don't really know what the steel is. And we get a lot of people saying, oh, I bet that's total crap, like a 3CR or 5CR. So I'm going to test a whole bunch of different budget steels of known quality. In this case, this is the old 8CR13MoV version, and I figure there's probably not many other companies out there that can produce a better quality 8CR13 blade than old Spyderco themselves. So that's why I got this knife, and that's going to set our baseline, therefore, for what 8CR13 can actually do, how well it holds up, what can it cut, how long before it gets sharp. This is not objective test. If you've come for like real world objective scientific testing, you are at the wrong channel. Sorry about that. This is only for my own personal interest. There's way too many variables that I would have to control, like exactly cutting the same materials in the same way with the same kind of sharpness and angles and all. Forget all that, y'all. I'm just cutting with known sharp knives to see how it holds up for me, and then I'm going to cut some other knives that I have no idea what the steel is and see how those hold up for me. So I figured I'd let y'all come along for the ride, but, you know, I'll try to be objective as much as I can. I use this redneck rating scale, which is 1 cuts like a spoon, all the way up to super sharp 10, which could fillet a catfish in midair without leaving a bone. So there you go. If you would, please, before we get too far down the road, give me a thumbs up down there. If you like me already, if you think I'm going to do good for you, just in case you got to leave early, that sure does help me. If you haven't subscribed, I love my subscribers, enjoy chatting with y'all, and I would welcome having you as a subscriber too. That certainly helps the channel out, so thank you so much for that. All right, as I mentioned, Spyderco Tenacious and 8CR13. I do have a full review on this knife. I'm not going to do a full review here. You can buy this for about $65 on Amazon. I will have a link down below. That is an affiliate link because I'm required by law to tell you that it is. But if you use it, I really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything. This is a great medium-sized EDC type of knife, 7.77 inches long. It's got a 3.3-inch cutting length, which is nice and long because there is no forward finger choil. The blade thickness is about 121 thousandths, so definitely on the thinner side. They have done an excellent job with the factory grind on this thing, which is about 14 thousandths behind the edge. Handle is 0.46 inches thick, feels good in the hand. It weighs 4.1 ounces, so definitely a nice, good work duty, you know, all day long cutting kind of good EDC knife. Let's do a couple of quick size comps in case you haven't seen this before. Again, you can see the full review, but there you go. It's a little bit shorter than the Umnumzon and a little bit longer than the old Bug Out. Because we are Spyderco family here today, we're going to let you see it against the PM2 and, of course, the PM3. Those are your right comparisons. Man, right in the middle of all those, right? So this is, again, a great EDC knife, something a little more modern. Maybe we'll look at the 𝗧𝗲𝘃 Vision versus the Pyrite Light. This is the regular size Pyrite Light. And, again, you can see this comes in right in between all of those blades. So we're going to keep that one and put the others away. So there you go. That gives you a sense of how it runs. This thing is running on phosphor bronze washers. Wow, too fast. Instead of bearings. However, you'll see because it has a fantastic detent, this thing has, you know, it took a little while of breaking in, a couple hundred flips to get there. But now this thing flips out. The action is phenomenal on these washers. I thought about maybe I should look at putting bearings in it, but you can't really unless their pockets are milled out for them. And now I don't need bearings. I am pretty darn happy with the action on this thing, thumb side or reverse flip. This thing runs beautifully. Very happy about that. Ergonomically, there is no finger choil. However, you do have plenty of blade. I love the way the handle is curved. It's going to fit nicely in my hand. We're going to see when we get to some heavy-duty cutting how that works. You've got that, of course, thumb ramp that Spydercos have, a little bit of jimping there to lock you in. I feel like that should be good. Does have the crappy pocket clip that everybody hates. You know, there actually has been worse. This one is At least the corners are knocked down a little bit, but, you know, I'm worried about that build. We're going to see when we get into the heavy-duty cutting. The other thing ergonomically is they've done an incredibly nice deep cutaway to access that lock bar, right? However, the problem with that is that also leads this to be thin. So now my finger is going to be riding on basically this side here. And with that jimping, I'm wondering, will that become a factor if I'm squeezing too hard on the front right there with that finger? We're going to see. That's the whole point of this. I will tell you, this thing came extremely sharp out of the box. This is definitely cut a catfish in midair without leaving a bone, kind of sharp. That is a number 10 in case you're not keeping up. Here we go. This thing is just beautiful. I mean, laser beam, soft and smooth. I mean, we can cut sideways. One of my friends out there, I think it might have been Wayne, I'm sorry if I made that mistake, said cutting a paper sideways is harder than long ways. There's a grain to the paper. This is an educational session, right? So it's much easier to cut a page long ways down that way than it is to cut it across sideways because of the grain. Well, I'm going to tell you, with this knife, you can cut sideways just as well as long ways. So that's why this thing gets a 10. And with that being said, let's go get to cutting.
All right, so here we go at the cutting table. I tried to measure out so we can get roughly the same amount. I've got 414 inches, square inches. If you're counting, you want to make it scientific and all. And I'm kind of excited to see what this thing can do. You know, Spydercos are known for good quality steels, well-made knives. This is just an 8CR13, so I don't have the highest expectations. This is probably around the lowest quality steel, other than maybe some of the unknown ones we have no idea. But I'm finding it just cuts through this cardboard like kind of a hot knife through butter. Let me know if y'all don't like these videos to be sped up. I did record 3 or 4 of these and did them all the same way, so if you tell me you don't like it going fast, let me know that, but understand is you're going to have to watch 3 or 4 videos of it going fast before I get to my next set of tests. This second piece seems to go actually even better than the first piece. I don't know why. It's all from the same it was a big Walmart box. We got something for Christmas, and so don't know what it was, but it's all the same cardboard. However, it feels much smoother on this piece of cardboard. Still cutting really well, better than probably most of the knives I've tested so far, which in some ways is surprising. You know, you're not expecting that much out of an 8CR13, although, again, with a Spyderco, you do expect it to be at least a well-made version of it. But this thing, I got to say, compared to the other knives, it's going through the cardboard very smoothly. Very little effort, nice and sharp. Let's get a piece of paper. We're going to test and see what the sharpness feels like. This one started at a 10, and you can see I have a few kind of false starts here, and I end up, as with all these tests, cutting a ton of paper because I don't want it to be that, you know, I'm just not holding the paper right. If this is credible, we're not blaming it on something. We're blaming it on the blade edge. And you can see now with a new clean piece of paper, I did not slow this video down here. This is me just trying to go real slow through the paper to see how it cuts. And feels pretty good. There was some gunk tape residue on there, which normally I would clean off, but I didn't in this case. So this test came out really well. I would say the sharpness after I'm done here is still at an 8. So we went from a 10 to an 8. So let's see what the rubber hose can do against this 8CR13 blade. So this hose, as always, is a pretty thick rubber hose with some kind of nylon reinforcement running down the side of it. This tends to be an edge killer for most of the tests I've done so far. And I got to say, these first few cuts through it are quite a bit easier than I was expecting. There's no knife that's just going to slice through that hose like a hot knife through butter. But let's continue on chopping it up into little tiny bits. Again, I'm just really trying to wear down the edge. But you could imagine how well this might do on like some tie straps or, you know, some strapping material that you might have to cut against a board. So held up really well. Let's take a look at the paper and see how well she cuts. And you can see again right off the bat, this is going to be a very confusing knife for me. I'm sitting here surprised at how smoothly, this is not slowed down, this is real time, how smoothly this still cuts even at slow speeds. So pretty impressive. Again, we were at an 8 last time. I'd say now maybe a 7. Okay, so let's get on with the rope and see what the rope can do for us. This is a 3/8" sisal rope. I had to look that up. That is the correct pronunciation, sisal. And I start out using the board thinking I might need that to raise it up a little bit higher, and it just was awkward cutting. And this knife has a decent little belly on the blade, so the first few cuts are really just me trying to figure it out and realizing, okay, you just kind of hammer it through there, that edge, and get that belly down in there. And after the first couple of cuts, which look like it's just going to be a nightmare, I start to figure it out, and you'll see over the next couple of cuts, now it starts to pop off a little bit easier. Still takes a little bit of pushing, but you can see those last couple of cuts are cutting through pretty cleanly and pretty quickly. So a lot of this is just cutter error in making those 10 cuts, but usually that puts a pretty big dent on the knife. So let's take a look at the sharpness again. And here again, this is not slowed down, this is real time. I am just trying to go through the edge of that knife where I just got done cutting the rope, and I don't know what to say. It's very smooth. It feels like there was a little burr at the edge after the last test, but now it's gotten sharper. So I don't know how that happens, if sisal rope normally sharpens edges, but there you go. We got an 8 this time, and I have no idea why. So let's take a look at the ergonomics and see how this feels in the hand doing some harder cuts. This knife doesn't have a forward finger choil, so you stay choked back in it the whole time. It does have that nice little thumb ramp. So it's just really about how does it feel when you have to really dig into something hard and do some cuts. You'll see it does dig into the wood pretty nicely. I also have discovered there's a big knot at the other side of this stick that I'm cutting, and that made it real hard when I was trying with some of the other tests to cut the other side. I am, however, feeling the edge of those scales, that squared off handle. It's not sharp, but it definitely is sharp enough to where you're feeling the corner of those scales all the way down the palm of your hand. And now I'm starting to feel the clip too. You can see I'm trying to point out the little indentation in my hand where that big old pocket clip is sticking up into me. That one's pretty brutal, so I definitely think I will get a new pocket clip to replace for this. Now I'm into some of the softer side of the wood here, and you can see it's still got great bite. It's biting in nicely, it's cutting well, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. I mean, it definitely can handle some hard duty work. Let's see if it did any damage to the edge of the blade. And you can see I'm trying to go nice and slow where I've just been cutting all those materials from about the middle out, and like there's nothing hanging up on this blade. So the more I have used it, it feels like the sharper it has gotten, and I have no idea how that happens, but certainly is very nice. I got to give it an 8+. I mean, it's just pretty shocking how little the edge of this wore down. This one is a definite shocker. All right, let's take a little look at stropping it back up and seeing how well of a job that will do at getting our edge back. Again, we didn't really do too much damage to the edge, so it shouldn't take that much, especially with an 8CR13, which has got one of the lowest edge retention ratings, which means it should be the easiest to sharpen back. And so running across the strop, I think I do 10, 15 swipes per side on that strop. Let's go back to the paper and see, did that do the job? And, you know, again, we were already at least an 8. This thing has got to be at least every bit of a 9 now, you know, but you expect an 8CR13 to strop back, so that's not particularly shocking. The more shocking piece really is that that it did so little damage. I mean, compared to the other knives, we're going to take a look at the other knives here in just a second that I've tested so far. This has been a shocker, because I was expecting the least out of this knife and ended up getting the most. So there you go. We easily got it back to a 9. You gotta love that, but you expect that again, you know, at 𝗧𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗃. So let's pull our test results and dive in and take a look at what we found here. So here are all of the knives that we have tested so far here in this series of testing. Out of all these knives, you would expect that the one in 8CR13 would have the worst performance out of all these others. Nitro V, 14C, K110, which is D2, a real D2, and the Sencut Serene, ARRPM9, all of those are expected to have a better edge retention, you would think, than an 8CR13. However, the exact opposite proved to be true. This is just, one of those things I guess you just don't know. Maybe the others didn't come with a good factory edge. I don't know. Anyhow, we started out at a 10-inch sharpness. We cut about 414 square inches of cardboard, which is much or more than any of the other tests. After cutting, it was still at an 8. Now the petrified beluga did that well as well. It started at a 9, only went down to an 8. So that K110 hung really well, which you would expect. After the hose cutting, however, it was still at an 8, and that's where all the others began dropping, and even some pretty rapidly. We did 10 or 11, I think, hose rope cuts, because it was just starting to get it figured out towards the end, so I did an extra cut, and even after that, it was still an 8. It actually almost felt like it had gotten sharper after that. And then we stropped it right back pretty easily with very little effort, which you would do expect out of an 8CR, to get back to a 9 easily. And I could have stropped it probably all the way back to a 10 with just a little bit more time on that strop. I am shocked would be a good word to express. I'm really impressed. This is definitely one of, if not the best performer yet, maybe even better than the Beluga, which was our previous winner. It just held its edge really well and was easy to strop back. It just didn't lose much after each of those tests. The ergonomics are good too. Spyderco is known for that. They have built knives for performance more than looks. This one, it fits really well in the hand. I love the way the back end curves. It did, as I noted, get a little maybe pokey in the hand with the squared off kind of back of the handle as you were really digging into that wood. But man, I would still use this. If I knew I had to go somewhere for some hard use, I wouldn't have a problem taking this knife, certainly, especially after the performance I just saw it do here today. The pocket clip definitely is something that you need to replace, but pretty much everybody replaces these pocket clips. Don't know why Spyderco insists on continuing them, but it is what it is. That's what you get, and everybody goes and buys aftermarket clips. So I definitely would do that. It wasn't as bad as I kind of thought it might be in those cuts, but it definitely, you would feel it. You saw it where it was kind of poking into my hand when you're really gripping hard and digging down into it. That underneath the lock bar, though, where I mentioned at the beginning of the video, where it's kind of jimped with that big cutaway to access the lock bar release, that didn't hurt at all. I was very pleasantly surprised at that. I expected that to hurt worse. So I don't know what to tell y'all. They say this is a 59 to 61 in terms of the HRC ratings, and that's right in the same ballpark with the others. But, HRC rating is one thing. Real world cut tests, edge angle grinds. It is also possible, I think the Spyderco, this Tenacious, had a better angle grind on it. I didn't put it on the workshop to test it and figure out exactly what that angle is. I do think some of those others came with a pretty high angle, meaning like 24 degrees or more. They seem very flat at the tip, whereas this one seemed to have maybe more of an 18 to 20 degree. Probably not an 18, it's probably a 20 degree would be my guess on this one. But still, sharper angle, better cuts, more edge retention. You can expect all those. That's why they say geometry matters almost as much as anything in terms of edge retention and your real world performance of the knife. That could very well be explaining why this knife just held its edge way more than any other knife that we've tested yet. So there you go. I'm a little confused by the whole thing that so far against all these other good, decent quality budget steels, the 8CR has held up the most. Again, I've said this repeatedly in the other tests as well. It could simply be a factor of burnt edges, bad factory grinds. They don't tend to make them the sliciest with those 18 to 20 degree angles. A lot of those could be playing into these tests as well. But for what it's worth, if you just want to pick up one of these Tenacious knives right out of the box, you're going to get really good performance without having to put it on, some kind of bench grinder and reprofiling the angle of that blade. So certainly highly recommend it. I'll have a link down below. It is an affiliate link. If y'all want to use it, that's great. Certainly helps the channel. Otherwise, let me know what you think about these tests. What could I do better? What would you like to see a little more of, maybe a little less of? Should I speed certain things up, cut certain pieces out? Still trying to work all that out, so I really value anybody's input on that. As always, I love hearing from you guys in the comments. If you're not a subscriber yet, become a subscriber. One, it really helps my channel out to grow, and I'm very grateful for that. But two, I love hearing from you guys and engaging with you. I learn all kinds of great things for you. Otherwise, if you would, throw me a thumbs up on your way out. That also helps me with the algorithms. I definitely appreciate it. As always, I appreciate your time, and I will see you soon. Y'all have a great day. Take care.